Let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really dense 20-year legal saga. It's essentially a massive black hole where all domestic paths for justice have allegedly completely failed. We're looking at an urgent appeal that outlines what's described as a 2-decade-long apparatus of institutional persecution. It's a fascinating, tightly structured breakdown of how one citizen claims to have been totally cornered by a system designed to protect itself, and we're going to map out exactly how this incredible escalation unfolded.
Which leads us to the central mystery of this whole document. After 20 years of institutional silence, why is an international intervention literally the only option left in 2026? To understand why this citizen feels absolutely reliant on foreign scrutiny just to figure out what on earth is happening and to ensure their own physical safety, we have to look at the terrifying sequence of events that systematically blocked every single avenue for justice inside Italy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before we get into the heavy legal mechanics, we really have to look at the sheer human toll here. The document grounds its claims in a devastating period following an allegedly unconstitutional night raid and forced expulsion order in 2010. This condemned the applicant and their spouse to 4 years of extreme poverty and forced homelessness. We're not just talking about a string of bad luck, but a deliberate, state-sanctioned marginalization that stripped away their basic coordinates of living. To really grasp the urgency, we need to look at 2026. These aren't random incidents. It's a highly calculated chain reaction designed to corner the applicant. It kicks off in January with a physical home raid, described as a domiciliary siege by estranged family members. That triggers a massive defensive countermove in March, filing a massive lawsuit at the European Court of Human Rights. But just as that international pressure starts, the domestic legal defense utterly collapses in June. And that isolation, it paved the way for a physical ambush in a garage by July.
So the crucial point is that this massive 201-page application to the European Court of Human Rights wasn't just paperwork. It was literally weaponized as a shield against systemic state inaction. The reported violations are severe. We're looking at Article 3 for inhuman treatment due to the devastating 2010 persecution, Article 6 regarding the physical suppression of legal documents and the denial of a fair trial, plus Article 8 for private life, and Protocol Number 1 citing the de facto expropriation of property.
Now, imagine being completely isolated, holding 2 decades of explosive evidence. What do you do? Well, the applicant enacted what's called a dead man switch. The idea is to distribute an encrypted digital archive, the A17 box, to external entities so the material survives no matter what happens to the sender. They reached out to a Rome-based human rights association, hoping to get the files to a specific European court expert. But, shockingly, the association strictly refused to forward it. They returned the archive, leaving the applicant completely out in the cold.
Bypassing that association, the applicant took a massive, calculated risk and went directly to a high-profile Rome-based attorney. At first, it looked like a win. Server logs showed the files were accessed, and after an 18-minute consultation in April 2026, the attorney formally accepted the case. But then, an institutional short circuit. When the applicant faced escalating threats and urgently requested Rule 39 emergency safety measures, the attorney responded with absolute chilling silence. Follow-up texts, certified emails, completely ignored. The entire line of legal defense just vanished into thin air.
Desperate, with their counsel suddenly gone, the applicant turned to the local municipality. They formally wrote to the counselor for public safety, who actually happened to be a former police quaestor, someone who definitely has the operational experience to understand this kind of threat. The applicant detailed their severe physical marginalization and ongoing stalking, begging for just basic institutional mediation. The result? A dangerous double refusal to respond. Even after submitting the entire European lawsuit as evidence, the local authorities just stonewalled them.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it all connects back to the beginning. To understand this massive 2026 escalation and why an international intervention is so desperately needed right now, we have to pivot backward 20 years to the original sin of this entire saga. We really have to ask, what on earth was so frightening in those pages sent in November 2004 that every single subsequent report had to be aggressively stopped, suppressed, and disappeared? It all comes back to this, the foundational 18-page complaint from November 3, 2004, known as the R1 complaint. The document claims this holds the key to decoding the whole 20-year operation. Sent to the Rome prosecutor's office, it meticulously mapped out family dynamics, identified regional entrepreneurs and banking executives, and most explosively, it exposed elements of Cold War-era stay-behind networks operating around the Vicenza district.
Because of the extreme sensitivity, the applicant specifically requested neutral privacy protection from Rome.
But here is where the fatal procedural short circuit happens. Rome, acting as that requested neutral third party, makes a catastrophic jurisdictional decision. They transferred this highly sensitive complaint directly back to the Padua prosecutor's office. By doing that, Rome essentially handed the full analytical map of the allegations straight back into the exact territory where the reported individuals wielded maximum environmental influence and had direct contacts with local law enforcement.
And the very moment that transfer to Padua happened, an informational black hole opened up in Rome. It's wild. Between December 2004 and April 2005, the applicant sent multiple registered letters, R2 through R6, but when they checked the Rome clerk's office, no trace. So, trying to bypass what looked like postal sabotage, they literally hand-delivered two bulky evidentiary dossiers, files D1 and D2, right across the counter. And yet those physical files mysteriously vanished from the investigative record entirely. It's an almost impossible feat of institutional sabotage.
This systematic physical suppression of the evidence across 2004 and 2005 laid the absolute groundwork for total institutional denial. Because the files had completely vanished, it gave the magistrates the perfect excuse to erect a stone wall. By October 2005, the public prosecutor filed a motion for dismissal, formally stating that the previous complaints were simply never received. The entire case was dismissed on an ideologically false premise.
Fast forward to today, and the source claims this historical erasure is being actively maintained through highly curated digital profiles. The aggressive local actors identified back in 2004 now essentially hide behind homemade awards from seniors associations, presenting themselves online as highly decorated photographers and contemporary artists. It acts as a passive firewall. To any external analyst who doesn't know about those missing 2004 files, the historical allegations just look completely implausible. And this brilliantly illustrates the extreme tactical maneuvers the applicant had to use just to survive this local power structure. To protect their credibility, they enacted a preventative safeguard, formally changing their primary care physician. You see, under the old administration, false medical data had allegedly been injected into their files to ruin their legal standing. By moving to a new, uninfluenced doctor and handing over the complete European court application, the applicant neutralized those past falsifications and ensured their current physical decline was officially documented as the biological consequence of state-enforced persecution.
So, we've traced this incredibly dense timeline, from the explosive allegations and disappearing documents of the 2004 complaint, all the way to the complete institutional silence and physical escalations of 2026. It paints a really vivid picture of a system that continuously short-circuits its own protective measures. And it leaves us with a chilling final question. When domestic channels systematically erase the evidence, ignore every single alarm, and turn a blind eye to escalating violence, is international scrutiny literally the only path left for a citizen's survival? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.